This is the MeatEater Podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater Podcast.
You can't predict anything.
The MeatEater Podcast is brought to you by First Light. Whether you're checking trail cams, hanging deer stands, or scouting for elk, First Light has performance apparel to support every hunter in every environment. Check it out at firstlight.com. FIRSTLITE.com. When we were out on live tour, I screwed up and don't know who gave it to me, but someone that came to the show hands me a Vaquero of the brush country. J. Frank Dobie, the historian J. Frank Dobie.
It's now your favorite book.
Listen, I'm not recommending it to people because you got to have a certain set of interests and whatnot. But I have learned there's this whole thing I didn't know about. So much of this book takes place down in South Texas along the Gulf Coast, where cattle do just fine on their own. Okay? And it kind of comes in the 1860s. It's mostly the recollections of this dude, John Young. So it's kind of told from the perspective. So it's a historian who took all of John Young's recollections. And it introduced me to all this stuff. A lot of this, Jani, takes place a lot of this stuff is taking place what became the King Ranch.
Like by Laguna Madre there.
Kennedy County, which is where Eteria is, on the ground that became like Eteria Ranch, King Ranch. Huge amounts of cattle. In the 1860s, the whole thing is you just go and catch them all and sell them. And not only that, catching hogs. Huge herds, building up huge herds of wild hogs and driving them to market. Listen to this. He's talking about when the cattle market collapsed. With cattle at such a low price that they were sold for the value of their hides and tallow alone, what was locally called the skinning war came to be fought. How I'd gone my whole life without knowing about the skinning war.
Or the muskie war.
Instead of stealing cattle and driving them off, rustlers rode out on the range and killed cattle where they found them, removing the hides and leaving the carcasses for buzzards and coyotes. Owners naturally became desperate in defense of their property. In the end, men as well as cattle were killed. Two factors, aside from the low prices of cattle, were largely responsible for this promiscuous and wholesale skinning. In the first place, the custom of the country was that any man could take a, quote, fallen hide, a hide off a dead cow, when he found it, no matter what brand the animal bore. The hide was his. Just as a maverick was his. A maverick is a unbranded cow. Just as a maverick was his if he could catch it. In the second place, with the country all unfenced, cattle in the wintertime drifted from the north towards the coast by the thousands. The colder and wetter the northers of winter, the more they drifted. In bad years, they banked up along the bayous and creeks and milled over the prairies. What grass they did not trample down, they grazed off. Then they bogged and died until, quote, in some places, the writer is quoting someone. Then they bogged and died until in some places a man might have walked for miles without stepping off their carcasses. Those that did not bog down grew thin. Then if on the tail of winter a hard spell came, they dotted the whole range with their bones. The cow people of the lower country came to speak of the skinning season as naturally as they spoke of the branding season. A settler short on a corn crop could count on a hide crop. The cow outfits of summer became the skinning outfits of winter. In the disastrous die-up of 1872, 1873, for instance, Jim Miller's outfit on the Nueces skinned 4,000 dead cattle. Of course, die-ups were dreaded by all cattlemen, but they were welcomed by skinners who had no cattle. Then when cattle did not die fast enough to keep their knives busy, such skinners killed them. Think of that.
Think of the wrist strength, you know? I mean, that's cowhide.
Well, that's my preseason hunting prep is just grabbing weighted pieces of leather and fabric and just pulling on them, you know. You're just tugging a lot of skin.
At many of the packeries, he's talking about the tallow business. I'm going to tell you a handful of
A
things.
packery.
At many of the packeries, the cooked meat after the tallow was rendered out was either fed to hogs or else dumped into the water. Some parts of the animal, such as the loin, which has no tallow in it, were fed to the hogs raw or given to anybody who would haul them away. At times, one could haul off free a wagon load of the choicest loin steaks. Captain Richard King, okay? Everybody's heard of the King Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
What are you smirking about?
I just love this.
The King Ranch. You can go down and buy a Ford truck, King Ranch edition.
It's great to hear someone else get called out for smirking.
I wish we all could have a day of the week where we all bring in some sort of
I'm going to start a service.
Yeah.
When I retire, I'm going to start a service where I read books so you don't need to.
Right. Just flip through your bookmarks and read the
I'm going to go
passages.
through the bookmark the places that catch my fancy, and then I'll read them to people.
That's great. This is a whole new podcast concept.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Richard King. Now, I'm editorializing here because you could go down right now to your Ford dealer at some point in time in the recent past and get a King Ranch edition.
Mm-hmm.
I have tried to call bucks over from the King Ranch, and I believe I have done so successfully. Tried calling coyotes over from the King Ranch and did not. Captain Richard King, I'm quoting, Captain Richard King, who established his great ranch in 1853 and who was for years in partnership with Captain Kennedy, which is Kennedy County, where the King Ranch sits. Back to the book, had a rendering establishment even before the Civil War. Now listen to this. He attempted to preserve meat for shipment by infusing brine into veins of cattle immediately after they were slaughtered.
Oh, wow. That's a new try that in your we should try that.
He probably took it. So that was used to be his thing, is like, I don't know how true. I've read that the wolf hunters, I've read that they would inject, you'd shoot a buffalo and before it died, you just inject its veins with strychnine.
Right.
I've also read that you just make a cut and splash it with I don't know which of those is true. His idea, King Ranch King's idea of infusing brine into the veins of cattle to preserve the meat did not work.
It's like preserving a human corpse with embalming fluids.
Listen to this. So they get after a cattle rustler and they catch him. After considerable delay, the case was affirmed and Singleton was brought back to Beeville to hang. He remained hard, cool, and hopeful to the end. For this was to be the first legal hanging of a white man in the country for a long time, and he could not believe that his followers would allow any such procedure. Meanwhile, I had resigned as deputy sheriff, and Sheriff Walton was so expectant of a jail delivery, meaning a breakout, that he got a half dozen rangers to guard the prison. While they guarded, Singleton wrote a letter to his mother, saying that he would never be hanged in public. Quote, this is Singleton being quoted in the book, before a gaping multitude of fools, especially B County fools. Finally, he made out a most peculiar will to which the press gave wide publicity. In it, he bequeathed his skin to the district attorney, J.J. Swan, who had prosecuted him, directing that it be stretched over a drumhead and that the drumhead be beaten to the tune of Old Molly Hare in front of the courthouse every year on the anniversary of his hanging as a warning to evildoers. The remainder of his anatomy he bequeathed to the doctors in the cause of science. On the eve of his hanging, he played 7-Up the night through with the Rangers. He was hanged on April 27.
They
nice
keep,
when
did
we
they
play
keep
cards
his
with the
hide?
fella.
I gotta know if they.
I've
kept
always
his
thought
hide.
I'd like to be, bear bait or something when I go, but being made into a drum to be played
every year.
to annoy your enemies on a particular date would be really fun.
Ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Of prairie dogs. Had the animals been called prairie squirrels instead of prairie dogs, they would have probably been killed off long ago for their meat. Their diet, like that of squirrels, is strictly vegetable. Their flesh is clean. Only their name has been against them as a game animal. Some years ago, 2 enterprising young men in West Texas made good money shipping prairie dog carcasses, cleaned and refrigerated, to northern markets, where they were sold as squirrels. Until food authorities discovered the trick that was being played. Then the business went under.
I was just reading a Mountain Man account where they're talking about how good prairie dogs are to eat.
Was he? My
Yeah.
kid tried one. He said, see, he shot one.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get more. And I said, well, eat that one. You can get all you want. And I didn't think he'd do it. So he fried it right there in the pan while we were camping, ate it, and then went off to get another.
The world record prairie dog was killed in Colorado.
Was it?
Yeah, and it's a grossly large. And the guy ate that one, supposedly.
What do you say
Like-
it tasted like?
How big?
I took a little
you should-
nibble of it.
yeah,
Just,
look it up.
Just, I don't know,
can't
nondescript rodent.
Steve, that
Who certified that record?
my mom was living in Colorado at the time, so I can't. It was a long time ago.
Ready for this?
Well, listen to this. Before on the prairie dog topic, that museum that I've mentioned many times, that's out of Shoshone, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
They have in that museum, which costs like $10 to go into, and it's the most amazing private museum for many macabre and different reasons. But they have a coat in there made out of like 500 prairie dog skins.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And as an example of like what the natives did once the game was all shot out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
A few days ago near the Frio, the body of a man was found on the prairie with the head completely severed from the body. Listen to this now. Pay careful attention. Near the body was found a horse with a rawhide lariat fastened to the saddle, the other end of the lariat being attached to the horns of a steer. This lariat, for a distance of 3 or 4 feet, was freshly stained with blood. The supposition is that in lassoing the steer, the rider accidentally got his lariat wound around his own neck and was then dragged about by the steer and horse until his head was completely torn from the body.
Never found the head. Never mentions finding the head.
Here's a guy who puts out a
Coyote drug it off, probably.
1877, a cattleman puts this out in the newspaper. Ready? He puts out a public notice in the newspaper. All honest, good, industrious, poor men with families are welcome to kill an occasional calf of mine for food, provided they do not waste the meat. And all my honest neighbors are welcome to skin and sell the hides of my dead animals, but living animals must be untouched. The killing for food, skinning, or selling must not be kept secret. John Timon.
Man of the people. He must have been running for office later.
Listen to this. This is loaded. I'm about done. Listen to how much history collides in this single paragraph. With the first big snow of the winter, word came in that cattle on the dry Cimarron, the range of the Cimarron Cattle Company, were drifting badly. Word came too that rustlers were stealing drift cattle on the Canadian to the south and selling them to tie cutters and graders for the Santa Fe Railroad about Turkey Mountain in New Mexico. So they're going out ahead of the railroad, grading timber and cutting it for railroad ties, and they need to eat. So what are they buying? Drift cattle. Who's selling them drift cattle? Rustlers. According to our information, the rustlers, made up mostly of ex-buffalo hunters, were under the leadership of a young man called Billy the Kid.
Never heard of him.
And here he's talking about, at one point in time, he goes undercover. There's a lot of guys selling stolen cattle, and a bunch of cattle guys want to know if they're selling his stolen cattle. So he dresses up like he gets an old bad mule, gets some grubby clothes and a floppy hat. And he hates wearing a floppy hat. And he includes this poem. Wear a good hat. The secret, this is a poem. Wear a good hat. The secret of good looks lies with the beavers in Canadian brooks.
Musical.
Beaver Wool Felt.
Mm-hmm.
Last little bit, then I'm done with this book. This is all the mate. You don't need to. No need to read this book. I just told you everything is good. I accidentally broke the trigger off the first Colts 45 that I owned and was not at the time where I could have it replaced. I simply took the pistol apart and with a file removed the trigger mechanism. The gun could then be fired by merely drawing the hammer back and releasing it, one motion. After I got used to shooting this way, I, like many other men, would not have a trigger in a gun. A man with a trigger had to pull the hammer back, then pull the trigger, making two motions in firing. One motion is always quicker than two. Of two men equally swift on the draw, the man without a trigger had the shade of advantage over the man with a trigger. Frequently, the fraction of a second meant the difference between life and death.
That is a rich text.
Good Lord.
We love it.
Steve's Book Club.
Yep. That's all the parts that one needs to know about in that whole book. There's one part that Randall needs to know about that I didn't tell him about, but I'll tell him about later. Oh, I think I texted you a picture of it.
You did.
Randall had heartbreaking news today. We were all set to talk about an 81-year-old serial slingshot shooter being arrested in California. Had been suspected for a decade of firing a slingshot through neighbor windows. They knew there was a slingshot. The cops sent in an investigative team that staked out the place of a suspect, and they actually caught him in the act of firing his slingshot around the neighborhood. Prince Raymond King, 81. They searched his home. A slingshot and ball bearings were found on his property. Brody pointed out that here's why it was in such big trouble. In California, you're not allowed to have a slingshot capable of shooting metal.
Which, okay.
Randall suggested that you need to install a strong magnet into the pouch so that metal projectiles are not allowed to leave.
The only way I can think you could have a California compliant slingshot.
In California, you cannot have a blowgun, and they don't explain it. I looked up the statute. They don't explain it. If you look at the statute, if your kid puts a spit wad in a straw, he's in violation.
Oh my goodness.
You cannot have a blowgun.
Well, I've done that in the state
Man,
of
I would love
California
to have heard an
I think
interview
I'm
with this
offended.
guy. It's too bad he died.
Yeah, well, then Randall report. Tell him, Randall.
Well, I wanted to get a look at the guy, and he's got an interesting name. And
Prince Raymond King.
Obviously an interesting hobby. And wanted to get a look at the guy, so I Googled him, and it turned out that he passed a few days after getting arrested.
I wonder if it was related.
They said natural causes, so it was related to cardiovascular disease. But, yeah.
They surveilled his home. He was observed exiting the residence and using the slingshot while we were watching. One neighbor showed his local TV station, KABC TV, in Azusa, California. Evidence. 2 plastic bags of pellets collected from a yard over the years. I think it's like one of those Jeffrey Epstein situations.
He didn't want to face the music?
I don't think
Or maybe there's more to it.
I think there's more to it. What are the odds that he would die in the middle of all this? I think it's a cover-up.
I want to know, and we would never will know, one of the many secrets taken to this man's grave, how good he was with the slingshot.
Yeah.
A decade of terrorizing the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it might be one of those scenarios where he people always have things that they love to do, but until they retire, they don't have time to get really good at them, like golf. And I wonder if this guy like lived a long, very productive life. And in the back of his mind, he was like, when I was a kid, I never got as good with a slingshot as I wanted to.
Like a minute ago, I was talking about what I'm going to do when I retire. He's like, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot the slingshot all over this neighborhood.
I'm going to finally have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
I
just want to wake up and shoot my slingshot over at the neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have had some sort of a little bit of a vendetta.
Well,
that's
my favorite quote from one of the articles was that, there's no...
This is a widely reported
There's
story.
no motive we're able to determine other than malicious mischief.
Yeah, like I think the guy like never
what gets
grew
me
up.
out of bed?
He was like a 12-year-old out raising hell, when
Right.
you're like TPing your neighbor's yard. Like, was it that, or was he some kind of malcontent that hated his neighbors?
I think someone should look into the neighbors. Why is it that without the full story, like when I hear a story, I always think this.
What's
Probably
the,
two
what's
sides.
the other side of the story?
Anytime someone's talking about someone like a divorce, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he did this. He did that.
Why
In the
don't
back
you,
of my
why don't
head-
you start that the
In
other
the back
way
of my head,
around?
I'm always like, I
thought,
just wonder what he would say. Or she, depending on what side I'm hearing.
Maybe he's got a child's mind, Like everybody's been out there just arcing shots into the sky, right? And it's not that you want that ball bearing to end up in somebody's window or something like that. It's just that you never thought that far ahead. You're
It's
like,
real
this
fun to
part's
break
fun.
glass with a slingshot.
Or
right?
you're shooting a perfectly safe target in your own yard, and you think to yourself, I wonder if I can hit that window over there.
Or he's always lived in that area and it wasn't developed. And he's always been shooting.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
The
slowly,
neighborhood came up
suburban
around him.
sprawl has closed in around him, and he hasn't changed. He's the only thing that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Right. Which unfortunately
Like an
does
old-
him no good.
Like an old gunslinger.
The world
Somebody was supplying this guy with his pellets. They ought to talk to that person.
Yeah. Or I'd like to find out about what has anyone looked into what the neighbors were doing to him.
Yeah.
I guess we'll never know.
They could have been bullies.
I guess we'll never know.
It's like this whole back and forth between Justice Scalia's wife and those neighbors. The flag situation.
She's got a flag for every occasion.
Listen, she does.
Okay.
But as you dig into that story, you start to realize that was a hot little, lot of heat in that neighborhood.
A neighbor feud.
Wasn't just like a rant. It was a lot of heat in that neighborhood. A lot of provocation. So with this gentleman with the slingshot, like until someone wants to get in there and do some real reporting about what was going on in that neighborhood, I'm not going to cast the first stone.
Could we send Spencer down there?
I'm not going to cast the first ball bearing.
Wonder what gauge ball bearings he was shooting.
When we were kids, this is the last thing I'll say about the slingshot deal. When we were kids, we hit on this idea that we would take. So we had a buddy, Davey Cole, whose dad worked at Sealed Power that made ball bearings. He worked at a ball bearing plant. So we had amazing ball, like great
Something out
access
of
to
Looney
ball-
Tunes.
Yeah,
Just
great access to ball bearings.
Pallets.
And like shooting marbles when you were a kid, and like you had steelies and marbles. Like
Yeah.
Davey Cole would show up with steelies like the size of a scrotum. He would. Anyways, we had all these ball bearings. You had all the ball bearings you could ever want. And we hit on this idea that it didn't work, but it's brilliant. It'd be like we would take a wad of ball bearings and wrap them in masking tape.
Shotgun wad.
Thinking that the thinking being that you could like catch your buddy next to a tree, or like let's say you had a squirrel.
Yeah.
We thought, well, flop, you'd hit this ball of ball bearings would hit with such velocity. It was a cluster bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Would hit with such velocity that the ball bearings would scatter in a deathly,
Yeah, kill zone.
It's good thinking. We should have brought in Eddie Corona, I feel like, for
Yeah, he's a
this.
slingshot enthusiast.
Yeah. Is he still after?
He had a
Game?
plan to hunt turkeys. Like slingshots are an illegal method to take where he lives in Arizona, but the tribes have their own game laws. So his plan was to take this slingshot turkey quest to tribal land where he could hunt unfettered by arbitrary prohibitions on slingshot harvest.
Did you suggest your multi-ball bearing load to him?
Yeah,
No, 'cause then you got to wait for the turkey to be next to a tree.
he might be interested in that.
Cal, you want to plug HOUNDations? Oh, also Tony
Oh,
P's
yeah,
here
Tony,
remotely. I
yeah.
can't hear a thing he's saying.
I haven't said anything yet.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah. But I do want to say something. It's amazing that you just use scrotum as a unit of measurement in that story, and everybody just let it go.
Well,
I've been chewing on it. Was it scrotum or testicle?
Yeah, was it the size of the ball bearing?
I thought it was
or
a
the
very
size
odd
of the
point.
pouch
What
that
did I
held
say?
the
No,
ball
that's not
bearing?
what I said. Was that size?
You said a ball bearing was. Oh, the bag was the size.
No,
of the
bag.
he could get giant ball bearings from.
Right. Well, that's what I was.
Go on.
You know,
Okay,
I thought you-
okay. I'll play this game.
That I
He could
invented.
get ball bearings the size of an enlarged
Yes.
of a testicle you'd want to have checked out.
Yep.
That big. Or the size of a scrotum from someone in very cold water. About that big. About
All right.
that size, yeah.
I got a clear picture now.
He could have said plum.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Okay,
Racquetball.
dried plum. I don't know. What kind of plum?
Sun-made prune.
HOUNDations.
Yeah, sorry, I had another high school story pop into my mind there that we don't need to go into. Probably need to check with a few folks before we reveal that one. Yeah, so Tony Peterson and I are teaming up for some new content on the Cal's Week in Review feed called HOUNDations.
Who came up with that word? That's a good one.
Tony.
You came up with that, Tony?
I did, and it has given me low-grade anxiety since I pitched it to Corinne.
That people won't know what it means?
Well, it's such a dad joke thing, and
That's
I
why
just
it's
said-
great.
I know. I
think
There's
just
of
said it.
foundations on Wired to Hunt, so
And
Right, I mean,
houses
that's-
have foundations.
But that's where that came from, is the Wired to Hunt foundations, and I kind of just randomly said it to Corinne, and it stuck. And ever since then, I've been like, "Oh, that sounds so stupid," but it just seems to be working.
I don't think it's stupid at all. And there's certain things like the dad, like all of a sudden someone comes up with the term dad joke, and it's like sometimes people create a word for a thing that they don't need to. Remember like the whole Karen craze, calling people Karens and all that, and then all of a sudden everything's like Karen, or toxic.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden like he's a toxic like everything became toxic.
I feel like
Dad joke is like
woke is there right now.
Yeah,
Woke
dad
has lost
like,
meaning.
Dad joke is gobbling up. Like,
Funny
how is
stuff.
it gobbling up a play on words? It's a good line. HOUNDations.
yeah, love it. See?
Well, I'm glad
Reminds
you
me of
like it.
foundations.
Yeah. So, yeah, what?
I don't know about you.
Coincidentally.
So fans of the Snort Report, which I know there's many of you out there. The Snort Report is very inconsistent, but we cover some dog training and some dog happenings and kind of what's going on during the bird seasons, or the training seasons. And yeah, so Tony's jumping in to provide a more firm and solid foundation to that Snort Report through HOUNDations.
Mm-hmm.
And we're building from there. Is that accurate and fun and cool?
It's pretty close, buddy. I mean, the idea behind it, you know, if anybody here has listened to the Wired to Hunt foundations, it's kind of just going beyond typical deer hunting advice. And so we thought, man, we need a presence in the dog world where we do that too. And so it's more than just like how to train a dog to heel, you know, the kind of typical dog advice you'd expect to get. It goes way beyond that to the history of dogs and veterinarian realities and, current canine research and all kinds of stuff that just plays into the world of dogs beyond just like, buy a lab because you like to duck hunt or whatever.
And they're the best dog. So, yeah.
They're way up there, buddy.
Yeah.
So when will it happen? When does the HOUNDations become official?
July.
Yeah, we'll start this in July, once every other week on Cal's podcast feed and go from there. And of course, we want to know what people think of it. So email us
And what you want to
and
hear.
listen. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of hound content for chasing bobcats and mountain lions. That's what I'd like to hear, Tony.
That's what you want, Jani?
Yeah.
There is an amazing demand for hound content, actually. That's a pretty wild subset of dog owners out there.
Yeah, I mean, you got Old Yeller. That left a
The
real
original
vacuum.
hound.
That left a real content vacuum.
Yeah.
Step it in where the red fern rose left off.
Well, to go to the pound and how to turn any pound puppy into a scent
Oh
hound.
yeah.
How's that?
Huh. That's
I'm trying to think of a play on words for that.
Trail blood.
From pound to
Oh, don't make another dad joke, Steve.
pound to death.
From pound to hound.
Not long ago, we recorded an episode. We recorded our otter attack episode where we had the otter attack victims in, and we recorded that in the MeatEater flagship store in downtown Bozeman, Montana. And two things came up there. One, we were joking about there's a buffalo skull hanging on the wall there that used to hang in the studio here, and it was the one we did this project a couple 18 months. I don't know what the hell. 2 years ago, we did this project where we skinned a buffalo all with stone tools, Clovis period tools, Clovis points, stone flakes, and we ended up with that skull, and it has a bullet hole in its forehead. And I made a joke about come on down to the store and take a picture of yourself with your finger in that bullet hole. So people have been sending in some nice pictures of them standing there with their finger in the bullet hole. And we're going to start a little board where you get your picture and they'll put the picture on the board, you in the bullet with your finger in the bullet hole. And we also said we should start an essay contest.
Yeah, speaking of hunting dogs.
Yeah, because Ben Long wrote in. What was his take? Oh, Ben Long, the writer Ben Long.
Oh, I forgot his note. Yeah.
Well, he didn't write in about Christy Nome's
he wrote
dog.
in about auction.
He wrote in a thing
raffle
about
tags.
auction tags.
Right. It was just an anonymous listener who wrote in being upset about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The guy said that
Yeah.
he was. So we lost a
couple
one
listeners.
for sure, probably a bunch
Yeah, a bunch.
over Christy Nome's dog. Oh, like why I was to blame for that.
They thought you were callous. That was the overwhelming gist of a number of the comments that I've read.
You displayed a certain amount of excitement over the topic. Yes.
Tickled was a word that came
Well,
to
no,
mind.
no.
Yeah. You're
I
like,
had just found out about it. 10 minutes before. And I was devil's advocating.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and you did so very effectively.
so hot on that subject. Ben Long wrote in a short comment about governor's tags. And it was a very well articulated, like an argument against governor's tags. And I said we should have we should start an essay contest about controversial ideas.
That is a brilliant idea.
And we said keep it 200 words or less. And the first essay contest is about Christy Nome and her dog.
Thank you to everyone who wrote in. We received so many emails.
How many? 100?
Not that many, but
So,
a number of dozen, and a number of people went over the text limit.
Immediate
Way more than-
disqualification.
did you disqualify
200
if they were over the text limit?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna start with one. Then other people can grab them to read. I think it's appropriate that I start with an anti. Christy Nome. What are you doing, Corinne? Why'd you make it blue?
I realize that actually this one might be over 200 words,
Oh,
but
that's
it's in
fine.
here, so
It's
I might have
close.
just
It's
undermined
ballpark.
myself. But anyway, okay.
Kristi Noem should be disqualified from vice presidential candidacy. That was right, because she was widely had been being a lot of speculation among political analysts that she was on a very short list of potential VP candidates. Doug Burgum from North Dakota. Yep. Who I like. Kristi Noem from South Dakota. Who else is on that list?
Rubio.
Marco Rubio.
There's like 3 or 4 more.
Yep.
Of them.
Kristi, back to the article, the thing. Kristi Noem should be disqualified from vice presidential candidacy, though not specifically because she euthanized her dog with a firearm. This is a very nuanced argument. They go on. Rather, the inclusion of the macabre narrative in her autobiography calls into question the robustness of her decision-making process, an essential quality for the second in command to the leader of the free world. Consider Noem's decision to broadcast a story where the determination was made to end the life of an animal that had proven to jeopardize the best interests of the family farm. The account appears to have been intended to curry favor with a subsegment of the population, though she was unwilling or unable to look beyond this end to the broader consequences that would inevitably result. Let's extrapolate this thought process to a presidential decision to eliminate a foreign actor who poses an imminent terroristic threat to U.S. citizens. While many would support this action as morally justified, a braggadocious recounting of the story simply to invigorate the base would likely result in an antithetical moral outcry, the revelation of tactics, and the presence of military assets on foreign soils. Some things are better left unsaid, a concept that Noem has failed to grasp. Chad Jenkins, Ph.D.
Dr. Chad Jenkins.
He goes, like Randall, I'm qualified to comment from Nebraska.
Appreciate that, Chad. Thank you.
Remember when Obama said we got him? Like, how's that any different?
Remember when he said that he did a lot of blow?
No, I'm just saying.
So I did, that's a quote. No, I did a bit of blow.
Right.
I did a bit of blow, meaning I fueled
Study sessions.
death squad. I fueled,
Oh,
I employed, I funded South American death squads, or I put down a dog that was biting people.
No, I'm saying this guy here is saying this is equivalent to like a president saying they got.
I'm off onto a different idea right now. I'm talking about people's I'm talking about this idea that like, well, that disqualifies her from office. Hold on a minute. Before you say that, were you supportive of a president that did a little blow?
I don't think anybody's really that upset that she euthanized. I mean, are we debating the issues, or are we judging the essays?
Judging the essays. I'm off on a different subject.
Yes.
I mean, this is my note. I just read an anti. I just read she's got because this guy's saying there's things you got to do.
Yeah.
There's some dirty things you need to do in this life. Just keep it down. Keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Don't be talking about it.
Well, yeah, and don't talk about it in a braggadocious way.
And he's saying now she's going to get. Remember when they got the ISIS leader? And Trump's like, he died like a dog, and all that. He's saying he doesn't like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Obama, ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yeah.
But this is Noem's political autobiography.
I get it. I just
In
think
Obama's political autobiography, he says, so I did some blow.
Right.
Right? It's a place where,
Yeah, she made like
blow. Anyways,
I got a,
who's gonna read a pro?
Just like you said, I'll read a pro. This is a good one. But I got a political mailing the other day. That just like how you extrapolate, like, oh, I did a little blow to being like you go like, oh, so that means you are pro death squad in the Bolivian jungles, right? I got a really good one the other day that's like, oh, if you're anti open pit copper sulfide mine in the boundary waters, then you are pro child labor in the death pits of.
I thought you were going to say you hate pennies.
Okay, pro. The revelation by South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem in her memoir No Going Back about shooting her misbehaving dog has sparked controversy. Noem described the dog Cricket as aggressive and dangerous, claiming that the animal posed a threat to her children and neighbors' livestock. She justified her actions by emphasizing the need to make tough decisions in the interest of safety and responsibility, particularly in a rural and agricultural setting where such choices are not uncommon. While troubling to many, this incident does not inherently disqualify Noem from holding or seeking high office. Leadership often involves making difficult, sometimes unpopular decisions. Noem's actions reflect a commitment to confronting harsh realities, a trait crucial in governance in rural settings. Managing animal behavior is a serious concern, and her experience might resonate with certain constituents. Noem's decisiveness and willingness to handle difficult situations are qualities valued in political leaders. These traits can be beneficial in high-stakes political roles. Voters and peers will ultimately consider this incident alongside her broader record and values. While some may view it negatively, others might see it as evidence of her dedication to protecting her family and fulfilling the practical demands of rural life. Thanks, Gunner.
There's our winner right there.
Very well.
There's no way
very
that's
well
200
reasoned.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I didn't.
Gunner. Notice his name. Gunner.
So I think the
Dog.
It was $1.99, Cal.
oh no way.
I mean, that guy wins
yeah.
just for doing that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, who wants another anti?
We're not going to comment on that one.
It's brilliant. I think it's the winner.
Brilliant.
I think it leaves out. Leaves out a lot of relevant evidence.
He's only got 200. He's got 200 words.
All right. All right.
I mean, he could have sent in bullet points, but that's no good.
Randall, you go ahead.
Anti. Steve's view that killing a dog shouldn't prohibit someone from elective office is reductionist. While killing a dog should not statutorily prohibit a person from political office, it is an action at the end of a series of actions that should cause voters significant pause, as it was a deliberate killing of convenience rather than a killing for justice or safety. Noem did not adequately train the dog. She then put the dog in a situation where failure was all but guaranteed. She killed it, and then she patted herself on the back for, quote, making the hard decisions. This tells me, as a voter, that she will not do the hard work of planning and preparation before entering a difficult situation. When that situation goes predictably bad, she will not look inward to see where she could have improved. Rather, she violently cuts her losses without any creative problem solving. She expended no personal or social energy to find a nonviolent solution to a problem. Parentheses, find a new use, home, or shelter.
Yeah, let it bite someone else's kids.
It never bit a kid. Or anyone. And then justify her
Try
act.
to.
Tried once. And then justified her actions to appeal to rural sympathetic voters. Killing the dog was not, quote, the hard decision I expect from my leaders unless they have exhausted all other options. And love the podcast. Keep up the great work, Riley.
And that's a short one.
And it's a much better argument than the first anti-essay, in my opinion.
I like Riley's point because, yeah, I mean, there's no question. What's the harder decision is working with the dog to make it a good dog.
Yeah, this argument that it was expedient.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving on.
Okay. The last pro. Don't make me do it.
This last pro was
People
like
get mad at me.
backwards though. It's like
Okay, then there's some
I'll
pros.
do another one.
There's
It's
some
fun.
Pros.
It's
I'll
like
do
a
a real
pro-
short pro.
Can I do this
Pro-con.
pro in the right character? No offense, Chandler.
Oh, I'm dying to see what the
No
character.
offense, who?
Yeah.
Gone are the days of the traditional American rural ethos embedded in the heartland of this country. The urbanization and loss of that cultural heritage is felt daily, even in South Dakota. A majority of Americans simply no longer have a tie to the rural roots that helped conquer the West, and the life and death on the farm is now just a callback to a bygone era. Politicians are elected for their ability to connect with the majority. It is a sizable portion of a politician's job to understand their future constituents. South Dakota Governor Noem knows, or should have known, that times have changed. The majority has changed, and her constituents have changed. Does shooting a dog cause a person to be unfit for office as
Does
vice...
shooting a problem
Oh,
dog?
pardon me.
Jeez, Randall.
I'm
too
rolling.
caught up in his
I'm
character.
rolling. Yeah, I was reading ahead, trying to figure out when I'd pound my fist next. Does shooting a problem dog cause a person to be unfit for office as vice president? Not at all. In fact, I would prefer a vice president that had that ability. But unfortunately, sharing that information in today's political climate, or the failure to recognize that the likely consequences of sharing that information, is a different issue altogether, which could reveal the potential competency of a politician. More troubling, however, this story and its subsequent backlash further proves today's reality. Gone are the days... ...
Lubbock, Texas. Now, here's where your little thing fell apart.
What's that?
You tried to start out like it was like thuggish. And then the language, you notice how you fell out of character for a minute?
No.
Yeah.
Well,
the
I did when you
language
interrupted.
I think he's
trumped the character. The
lamenting.
language trumped the character.
Yeah, but this one's weird though too, because it's like,
I could have done it.
Society's changed. Governor Noem's ideals here are not with the current times,
Yeah.
but somehow this is a pro argument.
You know
Yeah,
why?
it's
'Cause
like
you got, here's
nostalgia.
what's going on.
Hovering.
Right? Here's what's going on up here.
What's that?
Just the reality we're all in. Here's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's down here.
Yeah. Well, I thought it
He's
was
working down here.
that second to
Talking about
last
the way the change.
that second to last sentence really fits in better in the first anti-argument. The failure to recognize the likely consequences of sharing that information could reveal the political competency of the potential competency of a politician.
I'll read another anti.
I like the line though. I would prefer a vice president that had that ability.
Period.
I'm like, to what degree? like this occasional situation that Governor Noem describes, or like every Sunday you leave the White House and you go down to the local kill shelter and you volunteer. like where are we on the spectrum?
Here's one out of Brooklyn, New York. I'll read this because I got a shirt from a bookstore in Brooklyn, New York on it. So I'm in character.
It says
I'm
books
in
are
character.
magic.
A coastal elite.
Is that
Yeah.
is that from the Strand?
I don't know. You know, honestly, my agent sent it to me, and I have no idea where it came from.
Okay. It says
He brought
books
it
are
to
magic.
me. He brought it to me. I don't know. I never found out. I just liked it. Books are magic. Especially Vaquero, the brush country. On a recent MeatEater podcast, Steve suggested that by dispatching her recalcitrant bird dog with a bullet to the brain, it's a little graphic, Governor Noem has demonstrated that she has what it takes to make the hard decisions on the world stage. However, I could swear I heard the ebullient, am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. The ebullient Ryan Callaghan say in the background, she gave up on that dog.
I better look at the definition of ebullient.
Excited.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, like
Oh, really?
shiny
enthusiastic.
and yeah.
I'm with Cal. Just as training a good field dog requires patience and hard work, especially in the face of repeated failures, so too does governing. Perseverance when crafting domestic policy or pursuing international diplomacy frequently yields better outcomes than a trip to the sand pit.
Love it.
Wasn't it a gravel
It was
pit?
a gravel pit.
Combine 'em.
Get your facts straight, Brooklyn, New York. Sand pit. Wasn't a sand pit. You know, he goes into such detail about bullet placement and then has her in the wrong kind of pit.
Really focusing on the important stuff here. Keep reading, Steve.
That's
the
the end.
next
He
one
didn't
is
need no 200
hilarious.
words.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like 200 schmundred. I'll do it in 75.
Short and sweet.
There's a Lincoln quote. Sorry, I think it's Lincoln. Apologies for the long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one.
This was a fun exercise.
Yeah.
And I apologize.
Should we
if
do
I-
any more? Or are we
if-
done?
If I read that last one out
You
of
want to
character.
do? We could be.
I
done?
reread it, and maybe it should have been more wistful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
I felt-
angry.
Yeah, it was more
He wasn't like,
lamenting.
if the kids are gonna hunt, I'm gonna hunt.
I've always wanted to pound the table. I apologize, Chandler.
I bet she wish she wouldn't have put that story in the book. Doesn't matter pro or anti. Bet she wishes she hadn't have done that.
I don't know.
She ain't on the VP list no more, man.
I don't.
We'll do more essay contests.
I would love. She's not going to. There's no way. She probably doesn't want to talk about it anymore. But I would love if she did a call in and told us the. But
And
she's
are
not
they saying that's the reason that she's not on the list
One of
anymore?
them.
Yeah.
President Trump said his only comment on it, I think, was that she had a rough week.
But boy, her teeth look nice.
And she's got a better dog now.
Somebody else trained it.
Hey man,
Onward.
Hey man, maybe I'm call me old fashioned, but call me old fashioned. But I think women should have a
Shut
role.
up.
I think they should have a role in national politics. I don't know why there has to be a glass ceiling at the presidency.
As long as they don't make
Well,
more, that's
didn't-
fine.
I
Noble
didn't
Steve.
say
Noble
otherwise.
stance.
Yeah, so I think that holding up, that taking like having this like attack dog metaphor intended, this attack dog mentality toward powerful women.
I went back and reread this passage.
she's heartless.
Just
She's
so that I
vicious.
knew what we were talking about. My favorite part about it hasn't even made it into the headlines, which is she said that she didn't have enough kennels for all the dogs to drive home from the field. So she said, I kenneled all the good dogs and let the other one sit loose in the back. Cricket, she put it loose in the back of the truck.
The one that's been a crap
in
head all
hopes
day.
that a sharp turn on the highway would do my job for me. And that's why Cricket got the chicken, because she pulled up to the neighbor's house with a dog loose in the back of her truck, and the dog jumped on the chicken.
That's the thing. The whole biting incident just gave her the green light to for her to do what she already really wanted to do.
Yeah, she said,
That's
I
like the
hated that
argument.
dog. It was looking at me and it was pure evil in its eyes, and I put it in the back of the truck to hopes that it just flew out and I wouldn't have to do the hard thing.
A true
I-
dog
You
know what?
person
Listen,
knows.
If you
I
talk
kind
to
of
your
wanna-
neighbor,
Go ahead.
if you talk to your neighbor and he's like, I had to put down a bad dog, it was biting me, you'd be like, man, that's awful. I
Well,
get it.
when
If
a
you talk
dog-
to your neighbor and he's like, I put the thing in the back and I was just ripping down the road, making sharp turns, hoping that it just fell out, you'd think my neighbor's kind of a
A
like
really
the way
I
the
would
dog
love
is
some
looking at me.
expert dog trainer insight, Tony, on this to see if you believe that this dog, I mean, I don't know, but what's your take? Maybe you should do a whole HOUNDations episode on this.
Yeah, what's your take,
Best-
Tony?
are
I'll tell you
are
some
these
more of
best
my take.
practices?
I'll tell you some more of my take in a minute.
I think first off, when you're saying that you have it was a wire hair, right? German wire hair.
yeah.
If you have a wire hair and you could see pure evil in its eyes, I don't know, man. Like, I think you could go get a lot of wire hairs and not see evil in their eyes. I think she made a pretty classic mistake that a lot of people do, where she got a kind of dog breed she thought was cool. Like, oh, I like the ones with the beards, and probably didn't even consider how high drive that dog would be and what that dog would need from her. And so when you look at it and go, all right, you picked a dog that's, coming from Germany, it's going to be a bird dog, it's going to be a fur dog, it's going to be a blood tracking dog. Like, they've got that long history, and you don't work with that and acknowledge it, you might get some problems. Like, I think she made a big mistake right off the bat. And then I agree with Cal. Like, I think she just gave up too early.
My heart cries out to all the millions of dogs the Humane Society puts down every year.
Why is that?
No, I was throwing that in there. I don't know. I hadn't really thought it through. But I'll say this.
I won't disagree with you.
I'll say this, and this is only just occurring to me right now. I think that if Mitt Romney had a political
Was there
autobiography.
a pause there and salute to Mitt?
No, I was just
No, okay.
making a tap and slightly
Or,
tapping.
sorry, I'm thinking of Mitch O'Connell.
I think I had Mitt Romney said this in a political, not that he would have been in this situation, but let's just say Mitt Romney had said this in a political autobiography. I think the outcry would be different. I think that she is subject to a certain bit of sexism. Point being, no, let me finish my point.
Yeah.
What really makes, if you look at like scandals, like Africa safari scandals, you know what they really hate? Like an attractive woman on a safari in Africa.
I don't disagree with you.
It brings out a level of hatred and vehemence unparalleled. It takes on like a real, it takes on like a malicious kind of, because it's a family show, I'm not using the words that I would use.
Yeah.
Right? It's like they kind of like, I kind of want to kill her, but I kind of want to, you know what I mean?
Yep. Oh, yeah, we've seen
Now,
that over and over and over again.
Like this incident is so, it's like really viewed through the lens of like, and a woman did that. They're supposed to be, they're supposed to be coddling and non-violent.
But I don't
got
see
dragged
that
through
as
What kind of woman are we talking about?
Mitt caught a lot of hell for strapping the dog kennel on the roof of the car and driving down the road. Remember that story?
I don't.
Yeah, he's
kind of my final word on the dog.
he did. It was like a
Final word on
a
a dog
big
thing. Like any dog owner is when they say like, "Oh my God, that dog's embarrassing." What they mean is that dog is a direct reflection of me, and that direct reflection is embarrassing. I am embarrassed because of the amount of work that I've put in and how it's being
Or
shown
not,
off.
or
I've
didn't
seen
put it.
didn't put it,
firsthand.
right?
I've seen this where I've seen you're articulating something I hadn't thought about, but in explaining the attitude of the owner in this situation, it can only be what you're saying. They're not mad at the dog.
No,
They're
no.
embarrassed.
They're fucking embarrassed
Right.
to their core. To their core.
This is really shaking me up here. Go on. I've seen this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I didn't put my finger on it, but I saw it.
That's right. That's right. So if you're an aide somewhere.
That's just the end of your thing. I thought you were going.
Well, that was it.
That's just
dog owners get that. What else you got?
Phil, we need that sound effect where the typewriter thing goes.
I just got back from Louisiana. We were down there in Louisiana, did a number of activities, including went out and spearfished on the oil rigs. Went out with a shrimper. Commercial shrimper
That's going to be exciting.
for an evening. How enlightening was that?
Oh, I bet mega.
Unbelievable.
Did you ask him the hard questions?
I asked a lot of questions.
About what his net is doing to the bottom of the
Yeah, well,
ocean?
he does, but it's like they run a skimmer. It's like a shallow water deal. But yeah, I mean, we talked about bycatch. There was plenty of bycatch.
Is it going to
Much of
change
which they eat, huh?
Is it going to change or inform any of your shrimping activities up at the?
No,
fish
totally
area?
different because they're running a skimmer. They only the boat I was on shrimps in very shallow water, and it's a skimmer, but it does drag the bottom.
And it's all brown shrimp, right? Some species.
Big browns and whites. But fascinating. And then also went out doing this, and I can tell you this is controversial. Bow fish and redfish. There's not many chances in this world to bow fish really good eating fish.
So for all you Louisiana fly anglers down there being like, geez, this was slow this week. Steve was down there.
That whole thing, like it's
Why
like
is
the
it
controversy.
There was in the
Commercial.
bag. I mean, you got the bag. You still got the same bag limit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like people that get irritated by spearfish and walleye in Michigan. It's like
Yep.
the limits are the same.
Well, and I would invite you to go if you could find some stats on harvest statistics and find out how many are coming by bow fishermen. It's just
right.
Well, like on
listen. I went. It's
you
not- I
don't
mean,
know.
Did you get any sheep?
If you're catching and releasing and trying to find fish that you want a suitable size for your bag limit, if you are taking fish home that day, odds are you killed more fish than you were allowed to take home. If you're doing a decent amount of catching and release angling,
unintentional mortality. Yeah.
right? So like the spear fishing, bow fishing, provided those things don't get off the flopper, you're only taking exactly what you shot at.
Yeah.
You're gonna give up on the rod and reel altogether pretty soon. Spears, bows.
No, I liked it quite a bit. We had a good time. But the main thing I liked was this. We were with Midnight Blue. So we were supposed to go sword fishing with just friends, but the weather was no good for sword fishing. So we were kind of scrambling for stuff to do. And my buddy down there knew these guys, Midnight Blue Outfitters. So we went out with Midnight. We just said like, shit, we can't go sword fishing. Let's figure out something to do. And like literally right down the road was this Cajun family. And we went over there, and you go over there, and they cook you this huge spread, all kind of shrimp dishes, flounder, oysters, because you don't go out till dark. They had a hell of a time.
They
Ate
had
all
one of
kinds,
those
ate all
big-
kinds of Cajun food,
Big flat bottom boats with the light system and all that.
low lights. He had triple Go Devil. They weren't Go Devils, but had like like triple. No, man, we had a great time. And ate all that awesome Cajun food. And we were down west of where we're doing our MeatEater Experiences, our first MeatEater Experiences trip in October, which is over in Venice.
Mm-hmm. How far over were you?
I'd have to look at a map. What's Grand Isle from Venice? I don't know. It's because it's a hell of a ride by a car and not so bad by a boat.
Oh, really?
Same zone. It's just kind of like what it's like you're either west of or east of the west or east of, like west side or east side of the river.
I see.
Yep.
So you were still staying in Grand Isle, like when you guys would come.
We
in?
weren't even in it. We were staying on
a boat.
We were staying in Port Fourchon
Mm-hmm.
on a boat, but which is near Grand Isle. But we were just staying on the water. We were basically staying in the middle of oil field services, like all oil field services infrastructure.
I think it's great how all across our country, you always, like in my mind, I always thought about how all the wild places that are left are in these remote places in the mountains. But the more I explore our country, like the coasts almost have more of it.
Yeah. It was incredible, man. And you were getting into like netting and all that. I don't want to get into a bunch of relatives. Like, was it like earlier I was doing like this kind of like goofy thing. Like, okay, one political autobiography says I did a little blow. Another political autobiography says I euthanized a dog, and trying to do like moral equivalencies. If you're going to talk about the Gulf, okay, you're going to talk about the mouth of the Mississippi and the Gulf. And we're going to talk about, well, did you ask him what his net does to the bottom of the bed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how about we talk about what channelization and levee systems and oil extraction and hog farming and agricultural runoff have done to the Gulf.
Saltwater intrusion.
I'm like, yes, the shrimp net drags along the bottom of the Gulf. They are in increasingly a man-made environment. It's like he's shrimping in an oil field. So to go like, well, what are you doing to the Gulf? It's like, buddy, you want to talk about the Gulf in the Delta?
Bigger problem, as you're
It's
saying.
like, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? So no, I didn't bust his balls a whole bunch about that. This guy's family's been there for 4 generations doing oysters and shrimp. The destruction that's happened to those oyster beds and the destructions that's happened to that ecosystem ain't from him bouncing a chain along the bottom. I mean, is it in some way additive? Like whatever degradation you get on the floor from having what they call a tickle chain going along the bottom of your shrimp net. But I mean, come on, man. You know, it's a way different situation.
Well, I just think like in North Carolina, it really affects the sports people,
Sure.
right?
Undoubtedly. And I had guys, and like this guy's not, this guy was in no way an apologist for stuff. And I had other guys like, in fact, this guy's own kid basically said flounder fishing used to be a lot better. But the shrimp guys can sell flounder. Me and my wife ate 2 of them last night.
Sounds wonderful.
The shrimp guys can sell the flounder they get, which led to this. Someone explained, just in full transparency, like honoring what you asked me. They can sell flounder as bycatch. Who's to say where I go? Someone told me there's a little bit of that goes on.
It's a problematic incentive.
Yeah, be like, well, I can sell them as bycatch. Who's to say I can't go up and check for shrimp up where this flounder is spawning? Right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Sure.
Oddly, he doesn't like to go in the daytime, but we went out in the evening and we're like, let's check it out while it's still light out. The shrimp to bycatch ratio was astronomically higher. Daytime. The shrimp are down in the silt. The shrimp go down into the silt. I didn't know this. They come up at night.
Oh, interesting.
Shrimp are a mystery to me.
These guys are getting so boned. We did a whole podcast with the guy. What am I
Right.
talking about this for?
Next. Ching.
Yeah, I forgot.
Stay tuned.
No, I forgot. How
No,
did I
this
forget
comes
this? We
after
recorded
that.
a whole podcast with the shrimper.
When is that coming out?
Before this.
It already happened. But this is the area, like this is my newfound love. I'm going to say this. So for real, when I get old and die, I'm not going to do that, or get old and retire. I'm not going to do that thing where I read books so you don't have to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hang out at Fish Shack North, Fish
Love
Shack
it.
South. Fish Shack North, I already have. Fish Shack South, I don't have yet. But when I get it, I'm going to buy the nastiest thing I can find
Just shrimp all day.
down in,
Oh, it'll be a houseboat. You got to have a houseboat.
I might get a shack on stilts. I don't know yet. I might park a fifth wheel on a lot and have a Connex container that I bolt to the ground. And when hurricanes come,
Back it
I
into
pay
that.
someone to
All
get
your
my
shit
boat
in
and my
there.
fifth wheel and
Not a bad
split.
idea.
Either way, Fish Shack South is going to be that Port Fourchon, Bayou Lafourche, Grand Isle vicinity. Venice, maybe. That, I think, like,
Oh, the real estate values are
Unparalleled.
going up right now.
Since you
Local.
mentioned
well, they need it because they
Venice.
just got wiped out by a hurricane, and like a lot of value was lost down there. Like there was places selling after that hurricane. There was places selling basically 2/3 reduction in value because it just gets wiped off the face of the earth. So either way, that's where that. Let me just say that like South Louisiana is where my Fish Shack 2 plan is going to take place. It is just like. When I got home, I once again like bored my wife to death telling her about all my South Louisiana adventures. Love that place. I meant to bring down boudin and fry it right here in the studio, but I'll do it next
Why
week.
didn't you do? Oh, yes, please.
So-
next week.
If you want to see
Yeah,
what Steve's
well,
all excited
that's
about.
what I'm leading to because this whole love affair with that area and like, you know, we went out with Midnight Blue Outfitters down there. Well, I never met those guys before. There's a bunch of guides down there. There's a marina. There's a couple of marinas in Venice. The marinas are already there. There's already guides there in Venice. But we're doing a thing in October. We're doing a thing in October where I became friends with the guy that owns Cypress Cove Marina. And so we're going down in October. We've lined up all the guides for everybody, and we're doing like this thing called MeatEater Experiences where people could come down, and we'll have a bunch of our guys down there. I'll be down there. Jani be down there.
Mm-hmm.
Cal, you're going down?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Tony's
Everybody
Clay's
at
going
the
down.
table is
Tony
gonna be
Peterson's
there.
going down.
Everybody. We're gonna
And
record some podcasts.
We have all the housing, and we have all the guides lined up. We're going to eat Cajun food every night, and you come down. You can get a ticket or like do a booking for lodging, all the guiding, all the meals, and it's a big hoopla, big hoorah,
We're basically just going to fish our asses off.
and eat boudin.
Yeah. If you're interested, go to the MeatEater website and click on the Experiences tab. You'll get all the details. We also have,
Dude, I love that area, man.
very quickly some spots still left. Not many, but there's a few left for the waterfowl experience, which there's a trip in
October.
Oc-
November.
January.
November.
No,
You're doing it January. Cal is doing one in November.
Towards the end of November, yeah.
I'm doing one with Brent Reeves over New Year's.
really, you get to go with Brent?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I didn't know, but he's a waterfowl hunting fool.
He used to be a guide.
Yeah, and so if you don't have much to do, or if you're like, man, I need a better thing to do for New Year's than sit around watching the ball drop on the television, you should come and join Brent and I in Kansas and shoot some ducks and geese. It's going to be a blast.
That'd be a good trip.
Literally.
Cleaning birds, packaging birds, hunting birds. You get 3 days of hunting.
Yep.
Because you can travel with a 3-day limit. So feasibly, I don't know if this will happen. Feasibly, you could get your limit and bring all your limits home. All cleaned up, ready to go.
Hopefully we'll eat a few while we're there.
Eat a few while we're there. Jani, what was up with your Gould's turkey hunt, man? Was it fun?
Oh, yeah. A lot of fun. A lot of fun, but different. You know, it's hunting turkeys in basically what I know as Coos country, Coos deer country, rocky, pokey country. You know, loose rocks, rattlesnakes. It's just not where I'm used to hunting turkeys in, right? So it was way different. But yeah, overall. Awesome hunt. They only give about 80 tags out for the whole state.
Yep.
So I was one of the lucky few to grab one. You and I have been applying for the same amount of years now. It's been 13 years.
Yeah, and you get 2 points a year.
Mm-hmm. So I got lucky, drew one.
Did you guys get 2 points because you guys have done the Arizona?
No, it's because of how they do it.
Yeah, you can apply for a turkey tag in the fall, which means you can buy
God.
Wait,
it.
were you in Arizona or New Mexico?
Arizona?
Arizona.
Yep. Yeah. What else was
You
there?
became a World Slam.
Royal, I think.
No, Super.
Super?
You became a
Super
Super
Slam?
Slam holder. I'm a 2-time Super Slam holder. Did you know that about me, Randall?
Did
Hold
not.
on. What's the slam with just the four
There's like
that are...
Grand Slam. There's some other slam.
What do you need to achieve a world slam or whatever? Is there a
That-
You have
step
to
up?
get a turkey that's not a turkey.
Yeah, the oscillated down in Central America.
So I'm a Super Slam holder, 2-time Super Slam holder.
Okay. So I don't know my turkey slams by name, but yes, that made it so that was my 5th turkey subspecies that I killed. Which, whatever. In the end, yes, do they seem a little bit bigger and taller like they say they are? Yes. Was the gobble somehow deeper and longer? I don't know. It kind of sounded like a gobble to me. In the end, were they just turkeys in different habitat? Yeah, that's what it came down to. Were they unpressured turkeys for the most part? Yes, but I can tell you, after 2.5 days of some Jani pressure, some of those birds started to get a little wiser.
I love
You know,
that.
I had a
Yachty
morning
pressure.
full on where they had, it ended up being the same birds, I think, that I'd hunted one morning, and then they moved a canyon over, and I got onto them pretty much at first light. Not quite, I didn't get to their tree by the time they flew down, but I was right on them. And I called the gobbler in. He saw my decoy and just clammed up and went back to the flock. And then for the next hour, I made every sound that my turkey vest could produce, along with any sound that my vocal cords produce, and they would not shot gobble back at me for nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, like full on, just like took me and were like, take that, you little thinking you're badass turkey hunter, dude.
Uh-huh.
Luckily there, yeah, you can just kind of move around to a different zone and you'll eventually find somebody that's going to play. So I think, I don't know, I probably called in, I don't know, maybe 8-9 birds in 3 days.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was pretty good. You could pretty much hunt them all day. But what was cool is a full circle, because I think the first bird that I heard scouting, I believe was the bird that I finally killed on like the third day. I struck him up at like 3 p.m. and killed him at about 6 p.m. So I worked him for 3 hours.
Out of his roost tree.
Well, he was near his roost tree, I think. And it was one of those situations where I think that he was the king of the canyon, and his whole life, when he sits up there and gobbles, the hens come to him. And I'm sitting down there trying to make him come to me. And after 3 hours, he finally said, all right, I'll come down. And when he did, he came a thundering and triple gobbling every time he stopped at me. It was fun.
One of my favorite things I saw hunting Goulds was there's like these canyons, slot canyons that got sycamores growing in them, and they roost in those sycamores. It's the only roost trees around, you know. And one night we're down in there. I can't remember if we were scouting or what. I think we were scouting. We're watching these birds down in the canyon bottom. They're all hanging around the base of the sycamore that they're going to roost in. But then right before dark, looks like they're leaving. And they start climbing. Yeah, they start climbing. I'm like, where are they going? And basically he climbs up the side of the slot canyon until he's even with the top of the sycamore, and then just hops into the sycamore instead of flying from the ground up. Jani told me a thing too that was interesting. Janis was saying that
That's the Kevin Murphy pronunciation.
yeah, Yanni.
With a Y?
Janis. Janis was telling me, I kind of forgot about this. Remember the old idea that turkeys in rocky ground don't get big spurs? Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, Merriam's don't have big spurs.
Because they abrade them on the rocks. And like, if you think about it,
it's horse shit.
I feel like I've probably told people that.
It's total
Oh, yeah, we
horse
all
shit.
have.
But you look at a turkey standing there, his spur isn't abrading anything.
He's not scratching in a pile of like.
Well, think of
boulders.
what he'd have to do to
in the gravel pit.
Think of what he'd have to do if he did want to abrade it.
Yeah, because I got to talking about
I feel like I've told people
that tag is so hard to get that when people go down there, the real hardcore turkey hunters, they will they really want to get what they consider a trophy bird. So multiple long beards, a perfect fan, and then on top of that, spurs. And like nice spurs for a Gould's, which are going to be about an inch, I think. A lot of Gould's don't have any spurs at all. My bird actually was slick on one leg and had a spur on the other leg.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to talking to a game warden who's also a biologist, and I was talking to Heffelfinger about it. And then I ended up talking, I think I even texted Dr. Chamberlain about it. And yeah, it has nothing to do with the terrain. It's all just genetics. Like they just don't have them.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah, the same way like Merriam's don't have long ass thick beards. You know, it's like
Public service announcement regarding New Mexico. Hey there. I'm reading the letter.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron here. He gives his name. I don't know.
I think we should have Randall do this in his authoritative.
Just give me a tone.
Cameron here. Love the show. This is Cameron talking. Just a comment on episode 549. One of the topics discussed was New Mexico's unit-wide program for elk tags, also known as E+. Being a New Mexico resident as well as a guide, I have taken advantage of the lack of information the game department gives on the E+ program. The E+ system is an incentive for landowners to sell private land tags as unit-wide. We were talking about, this is not Cameron, this is Steve talking. We were talking about New Mexico, you can buy a landowner tag, but the landowner, like meaning the state, will give tags to landowners who hold certain size properties. The state will give them a tag and it's transferable. So you're saying to the landowner, like, hey, you own all this land. It's only right that you should be able to do some hunting since you got all this wildlife running around on your place and you're being a good steward of the land. Well, the tag isn't just good for the land. He can hunt unit wide, meaning you could have a bunch of ground with no elk on it, get a landowner tag, go hunt the national forest, or sell the tag to someone who will then not even step foot on your place and hunt the national forest. I'm not getting into the right or wrongness of this. I'm telling you that's how it is. Landowners can choose to distribute the tags. This is a person explaining this. A wrinkle in this that I did not know. Landowners can choose to distribute the tags as either unit-wide or as private land only. The part of this system I take advantage of is that if the landowner chooses to give the tags as unit-wide, listen to this. I'm going to back up. Where was I? Damn it. Oh. If the landowner chooses to give the tags as unit-wide, it allows anyone that possesses an elk tag in that unit to hunt their private property. Even if one tag is used as unit-wide for one hunt, that deeded property the tag was allocated to is still accessible throughout the season by elk hunters. The New Mexico Department of Game and Fish releases an interactive map every year that outlines each of the properties. This map can be found fairly easy with some digging on their website, but it isn't advertised. As a guide, knowing this information has been very successful in accessing properties that hold elk and also for accessing national forest land landlocked by these properties. Good Lord. The landowners of these properties still maintain control over access by motor vehicles, but they cannot deny access by foot. One more comment. This information should be known by anyone possessing an elk tag in the state, but the same rules apply as if it were public lands. He encourages New Mexico residents to read the regulations. He says, be safe, have fun, be courteous to other hunters. And he says what I was going to say. Talk to New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you what to do other than go talk. Look at this is that would have been a very fair thing to bring up.
An interesting wrinkle.
Pretty sweet system. Like,
dude, I had no idea. I do know this. I had experience one time with a landowner tag in Colorado, and that landowner, I got a landowner tag in Colorado and kept trying to be like, well, who's the landowner? Where's the landowner? They wouldn't divulge the information about the landowner.
Yeah, that's illegal.
It is. And I went to Fish and Game about it. I'm like, well, we can't get a hold of the guy. We can't even find out who he is.
Huh.
He won't return any calls.
It worked out. You got a big one.
No, I didn't.
That wasn't the hunt?
No.
Oh, there's a different
No,
one.
I got a forky.
Oh, that. Well, worked out the next time.
Cal, hog hunting.
Well, we should say that if you want to learn more about E+, listen to, we just did an interview with Jesse Dubell of New Mexico Wildlife Federation, specifically on the E+ program.
I never even heard that it was called E+. That's like a bad grade.
Right. Yeah. And
my kids the other day were wondering, what about E? I'm like, I don't know why it goes from D to F.
What?
You can't get an E.
Oh,
I think
in the
it's
grading system.
I don't. Is maybe F just stand for flunk?
I think there's 4 passing grades and then failure.
Yeah, but,
failure. Flunk. Failure.
Yeah, but they're like,
They didn't
well,
want to
how
make
come
5 passing grades.
How come no one gets an E?
Excellent.
You can get a D. You can get an F.
Question.
They don't even use that anymore.
No,
like
they're back to it.
Not in my kid's school.
Listen, my kid's school, he showed me on an app. He has like something. He showed me his
I wish
grades.
Grades on the
I wish
app?
my kids
Wow.
did, but it's completely.
So for the
yeah. It's
New
all
Mexico
numbers.
E Plus system, the system in place that our listener and Steve just described is a program that it's kind of like that give and take of supplying tags to landowners that they can sell on the open market. In exchange, they provide the access for being able to have a unit-wide tag, which in many cases is the tag on the open market that's going to bring in more money than RO tag, which would be ranch only.
Mm.
And
But
then-
that landowner's got to decide, like, I'll sell it for more money at the risk of having
You're right.
people come onto my
My
property.
guess is you see, this is just guessing, I don't know. My guess is you get a tag, you don't have any elk, you go off ranch. Because who cares if people come check your place? You don't have any elk anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the reason, so the acreage requirement doesn't really exist anymore.
Oh.
It's more of like a damage or proof of habitat.
They come in and assess the property.
Oh,
kind of
okay.
thing.
So you got to
Yeah.
have elk.
Right, but you don't have to have elk during hunting season,
I see.
right? Right, because it's your private property year round.
Yeah.
So if the elk are eating you out of house and home in the spring,
You could winter elk, but that doesn't mean you got bugling bulls.
yeah, exactly.
I
So
got you.
yeah, but tag allocation in the state of New Mexico is a huge topic for good reason. So another place to check out for more information is takebackyourelk.com, which is an in-depth breakdown of the tag distribution strategy in the state of New Mexico, which is pretty darn eye-opening.
I wonder if they're going to make that a national concern.
Oh, it's not for me to say, but what the New Mexico Department of Fish and Game has given up in terms of wildlife management in the state of New Mexico is insane.
Mhm.
It should be a cautionary tale for other states, in my opinion.
I think it's been instead being used as a blueprint for other states.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And this one, despite conversations where people say it's not part of the strategy, it really feels like Montana's heading down that road, and I am seriously against it. But if you want to talk about hog hunting in Kentucky, so the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, KDFWR, which seems like there's an easier way to make
It's
that
like a
one.
radio station.
Yeah, exactly. The hits.
Welcome back to KU. What is it?
KDFWR. bringing you the hits.
Anyway,
Friday
so,
Night Drive.
as we've discussed before, this is super interesting. They're getting ahead of hog hunting in the state of Kentucky
By getting rid of it.
by getting rid of it. So basically a blueprint, to use a word you just threw out there, of trying to manage, I would like to say eradicate, but eradicate's just probably not possible. But manage a hog population more effectively than allowing hunting on the landscape, with the argument being that you can condition hogs to be trapped, or they don't specifically talk about poison in here, but if a bunch of other folks aren't trying to get after hogs, they're not going to be educated like Jani's turkey.
But isn't a part of it also is to de-incentivize people to like illegally introduce hogs,
Yes.
right? Like if hunting is illegal,
They didn't say it specifically here, but yeah, as we know, like once something becomes an institution, or a business, institution being, this is what me and my family do. We kind of love it every Thanksgiving. It's a tradition. those people will be like, well, I love hog hunting. I don't really want them all gone, as we see in every state with hogs. Or on the other side of that, you have businesses that pop up that specifically guide for hogs in various ways.
And they bring hogs home.
And
We have some earth-shattering information that's going into our Sportsman's Atlas. So Brody and I have been busy at work on a Sportsman's Atlas. It's like an atlas. It'll be a whole maps from just crazy wildlife stuff. History of hunting, fishing, wildlife. And we got these geneticists are doing work of where do hogs come from. And I was reaching out to these guys about the role of hunters in moving hogs around, which is it's just undeniable. Hunters move hogs around better than hogs move hogs around.
right.
South of Dallas,
3 states.
Any place you run hogs with dogs, you will run into this story of like, oh, we caught a castrated boar.
yep, and they sent us some maps. So it takes a place in Florida near Okeechobee, I think, a place in California, in Northern California,
And
and a
Texas.
place south of Texas, and it's got arrows emanating from these genetic populations around the country.
So like hogs show up in Missouri.
Dude, you
They're
look
actually
at this
from
map
California.
of being like, we know they came from here, and there's these hot spots. There's a California hotspot, a Texas hotspot, and a Florida hotspot. Those hogs have been distributed all around the country.
Yeah.
People bring them home. They're like, hell, I like hunting pigs.
Where can I get some?
Years ago,
Dude, it's not even a debatable point, man.
years
Yeah.
ago, hanging out with dog guys in California, it was just like they would talk about this other line of income that they would have, which would be like the dogs would catch a really big boar. They could truss that thing up, keep it alive, and sell it to the outfits that were selling hunts for trophy, quote, boars in California, right? And so, and I've been on like a multiple of these little like off the cuff invites to, come kill pigs. And then probably half the time I would get out there and they'd be like, well, we'd appreciate it if you didn't kill that one.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, well, what am I doing out of here?
Here's a guy who wrote on the same subject.
Can we talk about one more thing here?
Please.
I think an interesting thing in this article that Cal is talking about is
Well,
that
Cal's quoted in it.
yeah, he is. But Colorado took the opposite approach. It was like shoot every pig you see on site.
Yeah.
And
Which is just generally how pigs are regulated.
well, but they're trying to prevent
All their neighbors, Nebraska, Kansas, Nevada, Utah, Missouri have banned hog hunts.
Yep. Colorado said shoot them all and seems to have worked. Seems to have eradicated them.
Well, we're sitting in a state right now, Montana, where hog hunting is illegal.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Or else
So we're
we'd
not
be
supposed to kill the
doing it.
Canadian super pigs that are coming
Yeah,
from
the
the north?
super swine.
Well, maybe
Right.
they'll change the regulations later.
Shoot,
I was
shovel, and shut
informed.
up.
I was informed of this threat from my children.
That
Somehow it came up
it's
as
almost
Canadian
like the person
super
who wrote
hogs.
that headline.
Super wolves and super hogs coming to get us.
In episode 555, Steve mentioned he was able to buy bonus points for his kids, but Montana no longer offers it. In Michigan, there's no age limit on licenses. Hot tip for you Michiganders. Anyone under the age of 10 can hunt or fish with a mentored youth license. This includes buying preference points for bear and elk. His 11-month-old daughter is sitting on a bear point and an elk point. His 4-year-old sitting on 5 elk and 5 bear points. His 2-year-old's got 3 each. Good for you.
Should have started that young.
He says, but as Cal and Steve say, if you're mad about this, don't hate the player, hate the game. He goes on to say the game needs to change.
Yeah, he's arguing that it's ridiculous.
But he has all the
But why
he's
not?
bragging
Yeah.
about all the points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he was just making a point that this is what I did because this is the way the system's set up, but it's ridiculous that my 1-year-old who can't herself get the points, can't use the points, can't physically hunt an animal would be gaining points.
He goes in to say it's worse than that. So he's doing it. He's the player, not the game.
Mm-hmm.
In all fairness, I'll include this tidbit from him. In my opinion, I believe this is ludicrous. Not only would my 1-year-old be unable to physically accomplish any of the activities she holds a license permit for, it is a waste of resource dollars. For the majority of the licenses listed above, I receive a printed tag because he buys this license. His kid gets all these tags, okay? His kid, for like very few dollars, gets a fishing license, small game license, spring turkey license, fall turkey license, a deer tag, a fur harvester, state waterfowl. His 1-year-old now has all these tags, okay? So what does this mean for the state? For the majority of the license listed above, I receive a printed tag, literature on the seasons, and follow-up surveys about how the season went. Sometimes his 1-year-old will get multiple surveys, all printed on really nice cardstock and sent through the U.S. Postal Service. So throwing in my own licenses, my household will receive 20 to 25 individual pieces of mail this year. Money that could better be spent elsewhere.
A lot of that money is still going to a good place. Come on.
He says, hate the player.
Yeah.
No. That's not what he
Don't
says.
hate the player.
Hate the player
Hate the
and
game.
hate the game.
Feel like you need like
Well, he
those
don't want
rip
I
off
don't,
track
hey, I don't
fans.
hate his 1-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
You know what it is here? To really make the metaphor work, you got this. You got the players, that's his 1-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You got the game, that's fish and game. But let's talk about the coach. That's the dad. So, hate the game. You look askew at the coach. But you can't hate on that 1-year-old girl.
No, I like this. I like this guy.
I'm not
going to
go put up a flag.
That's the best
next to her
sports
house.
metaphor you've ever had, Steve. Got to give you credit there.
It was good.
Silence. Uncomfortable.
Tune in next week for more.
I'm just thinking about hating on this 1-year-old girl. Like,
I'm
does
just
she really
saying,
know what
He
it's like
wants to
get
see
flipped
some
off?
bad mail. Wait till I write that girl a mean letter.
Wait till she grows up to
Dear
be a
little
vegan.
girl, I understand you've been using a lot of resources to fuel your bear hunting passions. Someday you'll be able to read this, and I want you to feel shame.
I know. I was thinking about getting all the printed mail for a child that can't read.
Yeah.
Tune in next week for more news, Corinne.
Yeah, we'll do another one of these.
Oh, we
These
got
are
a lot
fun,
to
man.
do.
I like these ones.
Yeah, we got to talk about genetically modified mule deer. I used to say the reason I love mule deer. And I used to be like, the reason I don't like mule deer is you can't buy big ones. And people will be like, dude, that is so stupid. And now it's officially true. That's stupid. I mean, it was mostly stupid. Now it's officially stupid.
Your statement or the fact
I say you can't buy big mule deer. I don't know what I was talking about.
In the U.S.
Then I'd be, well, it's harder to buy a big mule deer.
Should we really end on that note of self-doubt? Thoughtful reconsideration of
It was like one of those things that sounded good, and it had sort of this like aura of fact.
It's kind of edgy
Yeah,
too.
you can't
Aura
buy a
of
big
fact.
mule deer.
Yeah.
Can't buy a big mule
Kind of
deer.
The MeatEater
anti-establishment.
Podcast, an aura effect.
Can't buy a big mule deer.
Oh, I wanted to tell you something. This is kind of a funny situation. It was the last week, or my last week of turkey hunting here in the state. And I peel off a highway on this 2-track road, Forest Service ground, drive a long way, park the truck, do this big walk, end up finding some turkey, place I've never been before. End up finding some turkey sign. Have not heard a gobble at all. But I'm like, okay, cool. There's birds in the area. So I kind of set up camp for the night and then take a,
Oh, you're like backpack hunting. Or you mean back at the truck?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then kind of do a kind of a road check drive and to, listen for gobbles till dark. And I keep driving this road, but I've never been on. But I can see on Onyx, there's another kind of main artery about a mile further up. And there's it kind of butts up on the edge of this big meadow where I'd found a bunch of turkey sign. But I had parked a mile away from it. Well, I get up there and here's this truck and a dude with a camper, and he is in like full ghillie suit, turkey attire, and just mean mugging the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if eyes could kill, right? And I'm like, oh boy, probably not going to stop and say hi, and keep tooling along. And right before the other main artery is, I always call them tank traps, and they like decommission these Forest Service roads.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this thing's like,
It's called a Kelly hump.
Kelly hump. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This thing's fully decommissioned, but with some outlaw and 2 tracks around the Kelly hump through the forest to get to the main artery. Right. But keep in mind, I had just driven this road for 7-8 miles off of the main highway. And it just like dead ends at this.
Oh, coming from the other direction.
Yes, coming from the other direction. So I'm getting mean mugged by this dude who just did the illegal thing from the other way, as far as he knows. I did the totally legal thing from the other way, but he doesn't know that, right? And it was just like this super kind of awkward meeting there.
Yeah.
And then I kind of was... I didn't want to back up into this dude, so I did like the then illegal thing of following the outlaw 2 tracks around the Kelly hump. Ended up driving all the way around the block. Still with the hope of finding some turkeys, but yeah.
Tony Peterson, thanks for joining, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
HOUNDations.
But it's going to go like this. HOUNDations.
All right, see you next week.